evening. It's Saturday night. Well, not for much longer. So, as promised, it's a late night Saturday stream, so that other people can watch it maybe in their evenings or early mornings that normally can't make it. Um, let's see how we do today. So, where was I? Now you've all tangled, because of course you have. Rory's backside's in the way. Hold on, dog. Let's have a look. Let's put you up here for now. You over here. And we'll need you. And you tangled. There we go. Right. Now, where did my scissors go? I look like I've hidden them. Oh, I know where I put them. There they are. I'll need those. And we will need that too. And we will need the box of bobbins, but we won't scare poor Rory. Ever since he got bopped on the head by the box, he's not been too pleased with it. So let's not annoy him too much. It's all right. They're going over there. They're not near you. Right. Let's tug you down a little bit. Okay, as well. Why are you being so awkward? I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm rewinding a bobbin, so, and it's not a fast process, so bear with me. Yeah, maybe it's trample, trample, trample. Trample, trample, trample. It's not getting flatter because it's not freaking grass. You know that, right? last one of this chunk. go to plan. Not quite sure why not. How do you go through a hole, pull up a loop, and not end up with a loop? Pardon me. Pardon me. Fizzy Coke is definitely not what I should be drinking on stream. I do apologise. It's clearly quite rude of me. Well, it's done. Can't take it back. But yeah, that's despite the amount of Coke I drink, I don't normally belch. So I don't know why this one's so different. Itchy, itchy. there for now, because they just need to be out of the way. Why is this always at the wrong angle? Where is the angle holdery thing? There it is. Turn this round. Two, three, four, five. You are actually spoken for. We don't need you yet. You can go over there too. Right. You are too long. Right. Hello, Naughty Cat, how are you? I can relate to that. Is there anything I can do, my friend? You're, of course, free to ping me on a more personal level if you feel that is more appropriate. You know that. Okay. I understand. I missed you this week, but I didn't like to pry. After all, you're under no compulsory to be here, you know. a spambot? Hello, spambot. Report spambot. 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 Pokey thing. Not going to tie those off just yet in case I screwed it up, because, well, that wouldn't be a first, would it? Right. So, am I confident? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So hang on, I need 8. 1, 2, 3. That's 3, which means I need you 2, which doesn't feel right. Because there isn't something right. It's because you're up there. So I don't need you. I need you. That's then this whole set of that. That's fine. You are done. You are done, so we will put you back in some sticks. 1, 2, 3. 4. 5. Right. So that's you out the way, even though you're annoying, and you. And now we can sew off you just to be a little bit helpful. One thing I really hate about trying to tie knots in these bobbin ends is because they've been bobbin ends, they're all curly, and it makes it very difficult to tie knots with them. I have, but that's not the knot. This is the stupid knot that I don't understand knot that you assured me very much is a good knot, and I still don't trust it with an inch of my life. But I am following the instructions, so I do left over right and round, and then right over left and round, because of course they swap sides, to make the thingy, and then I give it a good tug and fucking hope, because, well, I don't trust it an inch. But that's where I live, so, you know. I think it's a stupid friggin' knot. But it's a knot. I'm going to stick glue on it anyway, so, you know. Because I'm paranoid and stupid. And a whole raft of other things. But, yeah. Okay, you now. You live over there, right? You get back through the hole. So I go left, over, right, and round. Even though that's kind of the wrong side of the stick. Whatever. And then I do, because it's now on the right, right, over, left, while trying to hang on to the other end with my fingers. And tighten the knot. And you push the pins down. Now, this pin is no longer doing jack shit. Because the loop's gone a bit wonky. But that's okay. We can cope with that. It's supposed to be in there. So, we will do these two bobbins. Because we need to wander all the way back up here. So, might as well tie them off. And we need to do two of those. And chop a vu. Chop. Pop. Chop. Keep you apart because I don't want you crossing over. Then we take the pin out. Do the magic voodoo. Actually, that reminds me. I was going to try this. Because this would be easier in a whole bunch of other ways. Except, normally they're too close to together, and everything's usually too tight. But when possible, crochet hooks would be easier than sticking stupid things in and hoping that they come out the other end. So left, over, right and round. And then right over left. Now, got to keep hold of you with my fingers, but somehow that's not working out. Why is this not working around? You go round. There we go. Right. So, you can go back down. You all can go tackety-voo under there, out the way. Making a lot more room for everybody else. So you can go around there. let's go back up here, because to do the cloth stitch, try and stop you from mating everything. Do a bit more cloth stitch. Now you've clearly got stuck on something. Come on, here you come. I see you. You have. You've got caught on things. And some other things by the looks of it. Stop catching on pins that are really pushed down. It's amazing how lace bobbins do this. Doesn't matter how kind of smooth all of this is, you can still catch threads on it. So, you are clearly caught on something, but actually, what it truly is you are not wrapped round there like you're supposed to be. I think is actually more of the problem. Let's take you out of the way. Well, so once I get to the bottom of this square, which is clearly only here, I say only, that could still be tomorrow, depending on how well we do. I mean, it's 12:15 after all. Technically it's Saturday now. But either we start square number 7, or I need to do a lot of hard work, because in my mind I am indeed suffering from I only did this the other day kind of feeling, because it takes about a week to do a triangle with my work schedule, etc. So pretty much every day of the week, so every Monday I do the top of the triangle, every Tuesday I do the next bit of the triangle. It's kind of samey, and as a result of being samey, my brain's really suffering from but I only just did this. And we all know that brains don't like that. Brains don't like, while they don't mind a level of repetition, there's still limits. And frankly, my brain feels kind of done for the moment. Now, the question is, do I do 3 more squares, call it a half window net curtain, and rock on to something else, which is, I've still got to join it all together, or do I keep going and make the full window, knowing full well that I am uncomfortable, I would prefer, let's be more honest, I would prefer a invisible join, but I don't know if I can do invisible joins, for I need to make an experiment to find out. And, well, as we know, lace experiments are not fast. And the kind of experiment I would need to do, I talked about this the other day, is that I have some multiple ideas of how to join some strips together that might not show. Now, there are known manners of joining, in the entire universe, there are people who know how to do this, but they're all gatekeeping it, and frankly, given it's 20 past midnight here, excuse my French, but they're arseholes. Anyone who gatekeeps information is, well, an arsehole. In this day and age, we should be encouraging people, not making it harder. And, with all of the internet, there is a lady on YouTube who has posted about how she, got thousands upon thousands of dollars to swan around Europe learning lace from all of these people, and some of the things that she, finished objects, and I went here to this exotic place and I learnt from basically some Buddhist monk up a mountain, how to do it, and I slept, I joined their tribe for 5 years to prove my worth, and then they taught me. Well, that's really nice, love. Thanks for flexing that you know how to do it. First of all, you haven't done a piece that uses it, so that we've seen, so it's not like we can go, oh wow, you really know your shit. Secondly, you don't do it on stream, so we can't hope to even learn from you. And it's like she signed some secret pact with the Buddhist monk up a mountain and has sworn blind never to tell anyone, except flex that she can do it. So she kind of annoys me for those reasons. She's also someone I would find annoying anyway. So it's no great loss to my soul, but at the same time, knowing that she knows makes me dislike her. Because while I am not doing any of these videos as training videos, it strikes me that in this day and age, there is no reason, I have, as some of you will possibly bear witness, when people have come on stream and said, oh, it's really complicated, I don't know how you do it, I will explain. I've explained that there's 2 moves and, all these dots and lines tell me what I'm doing. So realistically, it should be hard to screw it up, which of course we all know I manage, but it should, in theory, be hard to screw it up. Any lace maker who knows how to do torsion lace making would be able to take this pattern and go away and make it. And come out with an identical looking square. It's not open really. I mean, there are interpretations you can do. You can do more twists, less twists, etc. in some places. Variations on a theme. But the principle is they could make it, right? And with that in mind, I haven't made training videos mainly because if you go to YouTube, there are hundreds of training videos. We don't need more training videos. Now, sometimes it helps to have a different point of view, and maybe I'd help like 2 whole people. But for the amount of effort, I'd rather they came to the stream and went, hey, I don't really understand how, say, you do the tie-off. I will happily explain how I do a tie-off, right? Other than you've just watched me do a bunch, right? But if someone said, and I was in a position, it would be, yep, I can show you and talk you through exactly what I'm trying to achieve. And I have no problem with that. I really don't. But I'm not doing this to teach people. I'm doing this mainly for my own documentation. If people wish to learn and come and feel a bit inspired to have a go, I'm really pleased with that, and I will happily help you find things and maybe put you in touch with some people or some websites or, but I am here to document what I'm doing, even though I'm getting a little bit cheesed with it. And it is, so I'm kind of frustrated because I already know, well, I knew when I started, but I already, I definitely know today that I would much rather I was making a net curtain that didn't have obvious joins in it. But to make some practice pieces for the joins, you've got to make some decent sized pieces of lace. Because, for example, if someone said to you, hold your breath for 10 seconds, there aren't many people who aren't currently having asthma attacks who can't do that. But if someone said 3 minutes, well, I don't know if I could do that. That would be really hard. Longer, the more longer it would be, the harder it would be. And keeping a really perfect tension over, say, a nearly metre long piece of lace, well, if I only practice it on 2 inches, I won't know that I've really got that down. Because, well, with 2 inches, it's really not that hard, right? So to do it over a much longer period of piece of lace, you need to have tried. Now, I don't want to do like metre long bits to find out, but I do need to do a good number of inches so that, any issues start appearing. But to be honest, even then they could still be a bit rough. Um, and I've got some ideas. I've got some ideas of how to make the strips so that you don't end up with this straight line, which will always show. So even if I join it fairly invisibly, that straight line will always show, because instead of the diamond shapes like this, there will be a straight line through it. So if nothing else, you will always see the straight line. So hence I know the joins on these will be visible. Now, to an extent, that's a good thing, right? Because it means you're not pretending to do an invisible join. However, there are a couple of joins in lace making, and as you've seen, effectively this is a join because I'm joining another piece. I could do that as I made some strips. I could make a strip, and then as I work the next strip, join as I go. But that could get a little bit bulky towards the end. So maybe then you make, I don't know, 5-inch wide or 6-inch wide strips and try and join the strips together. Well, but then you've kind of got two preformed things that you need to somehow join together but make it look invisible. Well, that could be difficult. Now, there is one method that is mentioned in my Flanders book, to be honest, and using their vernacular, they call it lassen. But, you see, the problem I have with lassen is that, let's say you make, a bit like the squares, you get two, but you get your two, let's say they're zigzaggy edges, so that you overlap them by quite a bit, like an inch or two, preferably 2 in their words. And then you oversew, but you don't oversew, you almost do a ton of hitch knots, all the way down the bars in between the stitches. Well, I'm sorry, but if you've got some twisty threads, so 2 threads, so it's roughly that thick, and you're already adding 2 more threads, and now you're going to take at least 1 more and make it wrap round it, well, if you've got a thin, delicate mesh, you're going to spot that from space, surely. It's going to look like a real thick kind of, I might as well have used thick, copious amounts of glue, right? And in fact, probably glue would be better because it could at least dry invisible, and it would only be 4 threads, not 5, wrapped round and round and round. So to that extent, I find myself needing to try to see how badly things show, what it's like, how much work it is, because the lassen one would be shit. Admittedly, you can do it off the pillow, but it would be shit. And I'm thinking I would need to do it on the pillow to keep the shape and the distance and the things sorted. Well, that could get a little bit busy now, couldn't it? And so there is just this bit of me that kind of goes, I need to practice. But if I've got to make some strips, they've got to be reasonably wide so that you've got a strip, a join, a strip, a join, a strip, a join. Even if all the joins are different. No, I should shush because there's an ad. Okay. you rocking back over the top? Come on. Stop being annoying. That's a really good question, and it is something I've actually thought about because while going back in history, something similar has been done. Now, not specifically making a square, slapping it on, but they would make in Honiton lace, you tend to make almost like pieces like you would use for a plique, right? You make a little flower. They're nearly always frigging flowers, but they make a little flower, right? And then they would attach those to a net. Now, obviously, someone normally made the net, but they did do very much that, or they used needles to embroider the flowers on top. And you know, in today's age, you could very much, especially with a nylon net, put and attach a piece of lace, trim off the spare from around the edge to make a hole in the shape of the lace, and insert effectively your lace piece. So, you know, if you made your flower pique kind of thing, you would be able to join it and it would look like it was part of the lace. And I have thought about that because, well, that would be a hell of a lot easier, wouldn't it? To make a handful of shapy things and place them on. Because you can make a whole collection, decide which ones you want, decide where you want them, move them around a bit, and then go, do, right? And so I have really thought of that. But for my first effort, I am very determined to make the entire thing. And so, hence, I am making, in effect, diamond shapes in one stitch, filled with a slightly different stitch, on a netty kind of background. Except for, of course, the slightly squared edges that will show. Number 2, which is processing in the brain cells, for which I want to do experiments for, the net would... I'm sure my Alexa device just spoke to me from the hallway. That was freaky. As I live alone and the dogs are behind me. So I'm trying to plan a way, and I have an idea of what I want to do. I think I'm being too ambitious, but hey, where's the fun in being boring, right? Well, this is kind of ambitious considering how early it is in my lace career. But I have some ideas. And I think that it would be fun to, again, make the whole thing, but for it to appear as if made in one piece. Because, well, here's the thing. For the size of window I'm making, I possess a pillow that is big enough that I could make it in one piece. What I don't possess are the marbles of brain cells to do it. Because, well, kind lady worked out for me that it looks like it would be somewhere in the region of 539 pairs of bobbins. Let that number slowly sink in slightly. 539 pairs of bobbins. Well, there's less than 50 on this square, and I get anxiety and frustrated with the number of bobbins. Now, some of that is because as I get to this longer part here, there are 15 pairs of bobbins in play, so 30 bobbins, and really my thing's not wide enough for that. Now, depending on what I did, the number of actual live in use bobbins on the really wide pillow would be potentially less, but maybe not, because, well, you just, maybe not, right? So it is kind of there are a lot of considerations. But I would kind of like to try and do one that was done in a very old-fashioned way, which was, and it's well known that the historically large items were made in strips, and that generally it was a woman, but a woman would, her sole job would be to be the, high king and guru of joining, and join them, frankly, invisible. Now, I have some ideas how that could work, but they don't have any half-joined ones to show how it was done. Apparently, the technique is well known, hence YouTube lady has been somewhere and learnt it, but as none of them are sharing in general, kind of feeling slightly miffed. So I've obviously got to reinvent the wheel, but at least I know it's possible. Now, to be honest, there are kind of a finite number of ways these things can work. So, you either make lots of things where the V's butt together, which kind of doesn't work, and then try and zigzag along with it, but that would show because it's an extra thread. You can do the lasso thing, which overlaps, and that would show from kind of space, so that rules that out. You can do join as you go, but they didn't do join as you go, but you could do join as you go. So you make a strip, and then as you make the next strip, you join the first strip, and then as you make the third strip, you join to the side of the second strip and work along like that. And that would work. That would work pretty well, except, by the time you got to the other side of, say, a potentially 2 metre wide thing, that's a lot of spare fabric of lace that will catch on everything that you're wielding around and trying to join. So, kind of don't feel that's how they did it. The next option is a bit more like joining crochet granny squares, which is that you make a strip, and then while making another strip, you join 2 strips together. Why would that be easier? Because you would be joining something in the middle. So you have lying off to each side. And it's right, hang on, dog's having nightmares. It's all right, little man. It's all right. It's all right, little soldier. And I find myself thinking that could work because obviously you would have only maybe even 2 pairs of bobbins. So that you would have zigzags like this, and where it goes out, your 2 pairs meet, do the dance like this. Where it goes out, they just wrap round and come back in and dance. That would be pretty invisible. And only require 2 pairs, so it would be a real thin join. And it would be quite flexible on the grounds that you could make adjustments as you went, but you'd still have the pins to help you with your distancing and tension. You could also do the same with making the V shapes on the end have picots. Bear in mind how much I hate picots. But then you've got a pinhole, like here, to put the thing through, to wrap the threads through, so that then you join the threads to the other side. And well, that would be a bit more secure. But these, like you can see here, these pinholes kind of disappear. Well, picots ain't going to disappear, so yeah, it doesn't sound entirely good. Now, there are some examples of the final product in museums, and should I go to foreign places, I could view them. But you can't view them really up close and stare at them, and I'm pretty sure if you pulled out magnifying glasses and stuck it on the glass, they'd probably get a bit miffed with you. So you can't really do much about that either. Then you could do something that is decorative that would show, but that would be deliberately different but not. So, for example, you could, instead of doing the 2 bobbins that come together and do the dance, you could maybe insert a bead. so that it would be, yes, that's where the join is, but it looks like it was deliberately part of the lace and less visible that it was where it joined. Again, still somewhat accentuating a join though. You know, then there is the sewing it with a needle idea. Now, this one has lots of potentialness in that you do it completely off the pillow, and you have one single thread that you kind of skip from side to side and join the two together. And you would even be able to work around some shapes that maybe you made. But I'm uncomfortable with that because while I've seen many of the strips were basically straight lines with, like I mentioned earlier, the almost like applique pieces that stick out of it. Well, none of them had dents where you'd meet an applique piece on the next piece. So that then is confusing because, well, what did they do with the lace that's extra? They just chop it off? I mean, that sounds like it would fall apart in a hurry. Because, well, you know, these things were delicate. They were also made of silk. Now, silk is incredibly slippery to tie knots in. So, it, you know, unlike, say, I'm using cotton, which has a bit more grip to it. You know, if you tried to do something then and work round an existing piece and then wanted to chop it off, it would just slide clean out. So, well, then they kind of done that. But all the strips, and you can see some strips of prickings, didn't do that. Which then tends to the making an extra strip kind of an idea. But then there's nothing to show for the extra strips. So, but your idea of basically buying a really sheer nylon net curtain and attaching lace pieces to it for decoration is exceptionally viable. And I think that, for something like that, you could do half a net curtain of sheerness and maybe half a net curtain at the bottom of knot. That would reduce hugely the amount of effort and time that you would do it with. If you did kind of like the hanky style, so you have a square of it and make a lace border, again, you could do quite well. Maybe stick a couple of lace applique dotty bits across the middle, or even strips thereof. You could do quite well with that, depending on what you did. It is definitely an idea, and this is the problem, is that for all of these ideas, you kind of want to give it a bit of a go. But the problem is the amount of time it takes to try an idea. You kind of need almost like a guild of 100 lace makers who each will do a small part of an experiment. You assign them each a smaller task, because of course this is how it was done back in the day. One lace lady did not sit down and make an entire shawl or an entire curtain or an entire veil or anything. It was done by a team of them. Well, there is a lovely article I found on the internet about a beautiful kind of wedding trowel. Now, it wasn't very long. It kind of went down to the floor, obviously, so, let's say 5 foot something. But it only extended like a metre or so behind her at tops. So we are talking, yes, it was kind of triangular-ish in shape, although not entirely. It was kind of rounded, but, kind of triangular in shape. So let's say it's going to be, I don't know, 3 metres by 2, right? That's generous of it, but let's go with that. They worked out that if a single lace person went to make that at 40 hours a week, it would take that lace maker 240 years. Oddly enough, a little bit more than one lace maker's got. And especially, obviously, back in the earlier days, people didn't live till 80 or 90. So, they started earlier, admittedly, but they didn't live till 80 or 90. So, you're not, well, very much out, right? But done by a team of them, you do a bit. You know, it's a bit like, here's a ton of sand to move from one end of the beach to the other. Here is a dessert spoon. If you wanted to do it as an individual, it would take you a lifetime. Now, the obvious part says, go and get me a JCB, I'll do it myself. And that's great, but they didn't have those. But if you got 1,000 people with dessert spoons to each thing, well, now it's going to take a lot less, 1,000 times less. So, you know, the more you can get, the better it will be. And obviously, if you pick the fastest people to make the biggest pieces, then it's going to kind of even out a bit. It is just one of those things, is that lace making has never been a sport for the fast. Now, there are some videos of some incredibly fast people. But then, of course, the same is true with knitting. I mean, I was watching a video about, you know, world's fastest knitter, and damn, she's fast. Now, if I could knit as fast as her, that jumper would only take me a couple of days, and hallelujah. But, of course, most of us are not that kind of speed. Now, I'm no slouch at knitting, but I'm nowhere near anything like that kind of speed. I reckon I'm probably half her speed. I mean, she is super lightningly fast, but I'm like half her speed. And it doesn't take me 4 days, but, you know, it takes me about 10 to make a jumper. Or at least for me, a jumper for me takes 10 days. But that's also holding a full-time job, and, you know, I do think that, because so I want to do a lot of experiments, but the problem is the current experiment to practice some joins, I would want a decent sized piece. So I would want a piece that's this long and probably as wide as this triangle. Well, it's going to take twice as long as a triangle now, isn't it? Well, that's 2 weeks per strip. And that's still kind of a short strip. So what if I wanted to make it, say, twice as long? Well, now it's a month per strip. That's a long time. And I probably need 5 or 6 strips to practice the joins. Do I really want to spend 6 months on an experiment? I mean, if I was Lady Farquhar and I had nothing better to do and no job and no life, and, you know, teams of maid servants to do my biddings, yeah, okay. But I've got a job and a life, and I need to cook food and eat and go to work and well, then that complicates it all. I'd love to be able to spend far more time doing this. But, you know, kind of, while I can't retire, while I can't, because I can't afford it, while, you know, unless I turn into like the next Asmongold or whoever else is famous on you know, out there on the internet, and I can make a proper living, you know, doing craft on the internet, so basically never then, because, well, I'm not doing it for the money. I mean, to give you an idea, I've had 2 payments from Twitch. The first one was primarily stuff from when I did gaming years and years ago, but never reached the breach. And I've since had one other. Well, that basically covered the light I bought, let alone the camera I bought, let alone the microphone I bought, or the boon holder I bought, or anything. So it's not going to pay the bills here. But I'm not doing it for the money. Yes, it's advertised. Yes, there are adverts in my stream. Mainly because, well, Twitch is changing it so there will basically be adverts in everyone's stream. And that even if you are not an affiliate, that you can make money from some level of adverts. The amount of money I make from adverts is truly insulting. It probably wouldn't have paid for a French fry out of McDonald's yet. Because, well, there aren't exactly a lot of you. So that's fine. The only real money I've had out of it is I get a cut from subs. That's about it, right? And it's not a lot of a cut from subs, but I do get a cut from subs. Um, so I do find it difficult to, you know, devote enough time. And one of the other problems is, as much as I want to do some more lace making, I find it quite hard sitting here on camera, even though I'm not on camera, if you know what I mean, but being available on camera to do it, because it means I can't pick it up and put it down and have a nap and do it. I have to kind of do it until I'm done. And then, of course, I upload it to YouTube, which takes forever because my internet is terrible. And then I post about it on various medias. Well, actually, I post it twice and it kind of sorts the rest out. But I still have to do that. And I have to pick a picture and... Now, I don't begrudge any of it. But if I do a 3-hour stream, well, it takes another 2 to upload it. Well, that's verging on another day's job. By the time it's done that, but had the picture... Let alone things like prepping, pricking, designing it on the software, printing it out, laminating it, pricking it, winding a hell of a lot of bobbins. There is an awful lot of work in it. Now, as I say, don't begrudge a single bit of it. And of course, I've stopped making lace, so let's get back to also making lace while we do this. But I do, I do want to do this, and I'd love to do it on stream because I think, for people who are casually interested or, maybe come across my videos in years to come, because I have no intention of deleting them, maybe they can learn from my mistakes kind of deal. That doesn't feel right at all. So let's undo that a sec. Did I not twist you enough? No, I didn't twist you at all. That's probably why. So... I mean, your idea is very, very valid, and it would mean being able to make a much larger item much quickly. And well, and that's one of the other things is that much as I seem to do the same triangle every week, because, well, realistically, it kind of is, because it seems that most Mondays I start the triangle and most Saturdays or Sunday I finish the triangle. Therefore, well, it is kind of the same every week. And this is triangle number 24. So kind of 24 weeks later, here we are. As you say, the problem is, for every week, day, whatever insert you do, you are delaying the completion of the next triangle, square, etc. And, well, it already is an estimation of 18 months. So if I add the best part of 6 months doing an experiment for the piece of lace to come in the future, after I've finished this, well, then I'm delaying the end of this by another 6 months. I mean, it kind of self-defeating, really. It's, as you say, the more diversions and the longer the diversions, the longer it will take before I get to the end. And I'm free to do the next big thing, or the next stupid thing, or the next daft brain cell idea. No sneezes that I remember. Yeah, I just don't really want to kind of extend the amount of time that it's going to take me. But at the same time, if I don't do some diversions, then, well, I'm going to get a bit of triangle fatigue, which I've already got a little bit. Because, as I say, every week's pretty much the same. And, well, by being the same, it is good to have a bit of a change, to do something else. And the end of a square is generally the best time to do that, because then you don't feel quite so guilty of ignoring the triangle you were working on, or the square you were working on. So I don't know. I really don't know quite what the answer is, because, I want to do these things. I want to find out if I could make a join. I want to see if I can make a pretty invisible join, or, how does it look like a 3-year-old did it after, eating a pint of Blue Smarties or something. Then, I know that there's no point planning that, or trying to then stick to the actually doing it all in one piece. So I don't know. I find it a tough decision, and one that's rattling around my head quite a bit, because obviously, the brain cells are quite confident that getting to the end of this and making a net curtain out of it is now just a question of time. It is no longer could I. It knows I could, because, well, once I've done one square, basically you've done all the squares. So, all you've got to do is repeat it. So, from that point of view, well, the main struggle is over. So, it's kind of not so interested anymore. It wants to know the next most difficult thing it can dream up in its little brain cells, and try and force me to do. And the answer is the one piece, or the at least fake one piece variety. Because don't get me wrong, it would look better. Of course it would look better. I mean, have you ever seen a net curtain that looks divided into actual physical squares that look like a patchwork quilt? Of course you haven't. To be honest, this square's ancestor is part of a tablecloth. Now, you don't normally see patchwork looking tablecloths. So, it was a bit of a unique start in life at the best of times. Now, I'm not saying that the tablecloth is ugly, because it's not. But it is uncommon. And the same is true with a net curtain that's going to look like a patchwork quilt. I don't believe I've ever seen one before. So, it is going to be unusual. Now, unusual can be good. It doesn't make it wrong. But it is not what people would expect. When you say net curtain, most people imagine a proper net curtain that is, made in one piece, that has, maybe a bit of a pattern on it, but, nothing exciting. Whereas this is quite a distinct pattern. This is a bit heavy for a net curtain, but it's what I wanted, so that's fine. But it still makes it even further from the traditional net curtain kind of look. And it's not going to look anything like what most people would expect when you say the word net curtain. As it turns out, a lot of people don't even know what net curtains are. Which was a bit of a surprise to me, but, they are a lot less common these days. So yeah, I don't know. It troubles my brain cells. And makes my head hurt. For there are lots of options, but the amount of time to check which option's the best option, or even a viable option, because, some of these harebrained ideas may not even work. I mean, I'm pretty sure they should, but until you try it, maybe actually not. So yes. Anyway, thank you. Welcome to the channel. It's good to have some, philosophical debates. That's always on whether things would work, and, is it a good plan? And I think the answer is yours is a good plan. I do think that is a very viable way of ending up with a net curtain. Um, and you see, that's the thing, is that if lace making was a bit more like knitting, for example, where you could nick a bit of a swatch and decide how, yeah, that looks good in the yarn I've picked, yeah, I'm cool with that, that's the gauge I want, yeah, great, let's go. Because you can do that nearly for every single thing, even if you pick sock yarn and you want, and it demands you do a 4-inch square, it doesn't generally take more than an hour. Well, as you may have noticed from today, I've done this little chunk and this little chunk, and it's been nearly 2.5 hours. Now, admittedly, I've stopped and yapped a fair bit, so, let's not pretend that that's not part of the problem. But the truth is, with lace making, is it's not a speed sport, right? So, even, even if you're fairly fast, it's the placing of the pins that takes most of the wretched time. So you're still limited. It's still going to take a pretty decent amount of time to make a test piece. Well, and yes, you can try and take a photo of it and simulate it in Photoshop and try and say, well, will it look nice? Well, the answer is you could probably make it look nice. That's not the problem. The problem is could you actually make it? Because, of course, you can do an invisible join in Photoshop. You can't necessarily in real life. So, it's not going to look the same. No. No. And, I mean, I keep explaining to people that realistically, bobbin lace is really not hard. It is made of 2 moves: cross, left over right, and twist, right over left. That just happens to be 2 at the same time. That is it. That is all bobbin lace is made of. So much like knitting is poke, wrap, pull, crochet is also poke, wrap, pull. 90% of weaving can be defined as stomp, throw, bash. It's still very possible to make a complete pig's ear of it, and do the wrong thing, miss twists or miss this and screw up that. See, that's still well within the remit of the human mind. But to make the join good, to make enough of it, just takes a really long time. And like anything that takes a long time, you don't really want something you can't use when you finish it. Because if you've just spent 6 months making strips and you join them together, well, you kind of want it to be something, don't you? You don't really, much like knitting swatches, no knitter ever loves making swatches because it feels like it's a waste of yarn and time. Secondly, because you're supposed to wash and block them in your knitting and stuff, well, then, what do you do with it? You've got this stupid, useless square, right? So it is one of those frustrations that if I do make my test pieces, I will have spent possibly as much as 6 months making strips to try and join them together. If they join together well, I will have a single item that is great and glorious. But because I want to try a number, even if one does seem pretty successful, because obviously I'm going to start with one I think that is fairly invisible. I'm not going to start with the worst one, now am I? But then I still want to do the worst one, even though I know it's not going to be workable. I just want to prove to myself how unworkable it is. Well, then I'm going to end up with an ugly block of lace that took me 6 months to make, and I've no use for whatsoever, except 6 months of my life will have passed by, and realistically all I've got is a pile of ugly for it, and I can't even really undo it and, you know, at least reuse any of it. So I don't know. It's, as you say, it is not for the faint-hearted, and this hobby is not for the meek. It is definitely not for those who are not prepared to waste a lot of time. And not, well, and this is the thing. When you get to the end of it, you want it to be beautiful. But if it's spoiled by the join, well, that's going to be really disappointing now, isn't it? And this is why, for example, I do something to these squares which is highly untraditional, which is that come the end of the square, when I've knotted it up. Now, the knots are semi-traditional at the end, don't get me wrong. There are two ways to do it. One involves knots. Hello, knots. One involves sewing lots of it and losing your marbles. Hello, tried that. And a quarter of this. So literally a square that was this in diameter so I only had to sew like half of that. So this much took me 4.5 hours and I lost my marbles. All of them. I'm still not sure I found them all since then. I think there might be one under the couch, right? 4 freaking hours, and I only did half of that. So I literally did kind of like this much, and it took 4.5 stinking hours. Oh, the pain. Hence, I lost my marbles. Um, I have found a way to make generally the sewing slightly faster, which is to take the bobbins off the end. Traditionally, you leave the bobbins on until you're done, and you actually knot it with the bobbins on. I find the bobbins get in the way, so I cut the bobbins off, and like earlier, I chopped off 10 pairs of bobbins, and it didn't take me, 20 hours to do it, so that's a bonus. Um, but, as you say, once it's done, it is pretty. In case you haven't seen, so it might go a bit quiet, but um, this is the end product. This is what this square will look like. This is one of its cousins. Now, it should be a twin, but each one has new and unique methods of screwing it up. So, but this is one of my squares. So that is what we're aiming for, and then we will join them all together. Um, so yes, it is, but it takes a while. It is not a fast hobby. I wish it was. I wish there was. I wish I felt that I could do this faster, but to be honest, as I said, it's not the lace making so much that takes the time, it's the pins. It is the stabbing of the pins. It is the sewing of the ends. It is the sorting out the bobbin piles so that you don't end up with a big tangled mess of crap. And then should you get a big tangled mess of crap, the untangling the big mess of crap. So, there is definitely, I mean, I'm, as I say, I'm no slouch, but I also know that I am not some of these mega fast ladies you can find videos of, but I'm also not that bad. Imagine if I was slower, God help me alive. Um, You know, that would be really quite depressing. You know, if it took me, say, 2 weeks to do a triangle. Um, Now, I do think strips are slightly quicker to make. Um, but not a lot. Well, that's my hope, is that it will be pretty, and you know, the nice solid bits will cast an interesting shadow on the carpet. So will the rose grounds, that, you know, the pattern will shine through, almost like the a monochrome stain window, in that it will cast many interesting shadows round the floor. Um, that is my hope. Um, it's part of the reason I wanted this to be as solid as it is, to give it a interesting shadow effect. Because I really like stained glass stuff. But obviously, this won't be the same. So. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just checking something here. it's a pleasure, and yes, I the pin finder thing is really quite sensible. I mean, for example, here he is, right? I mean, he's the size of a torch, so it's really practical to have. You turn him on, and you point the pointy end, and it finds your pins. Um, but it does mean, because for some reason I am a bit of a ham-fisted idiot, right? While I'm actually quite dexterous to a large extent, for whatever reason, when it comes to picking out pins, for example, out of my little tiny pot here, if I tilt it a bit, you can see how big it is. It's 500 grams of pins, or it was. The rest are in here. A lot of them, as you may notice on nearest my thumb here, wiggling at the bottom, lay pointy end outwards. And as a result, they stick in my fingers, flick themselves all over the floor, and well, I've got two furry helpers. And I don't really want to be incurring excessive vet bills by them standing on them. Because, well, it's avoidable. So when I saw, this woman who was, a post from this woman who was clearly exceptionally disappointed that her husband had bought her a metal detector for her birthday, I'm sorry, but I think the guy's a genius. So I bought one. I get that it's not a Ferrari or a Ming vase or something, but it's something that is really practical. And if she does a lot of lace making, which she did do lace making, then, well, it's a cracking idea. And it's something very practical for him and her, potentially, so that he doesn't stand on them and she or sit on them or, insert wherever he last found one. But also, it's something she can really use. So, to me, it's a great gift. Now, we can all sit there and go, I mean, my one cost me £14. It's not exactly... I mean, if that was the only thing he got her, maybe that was being a bit tight. But, again, it's not... For me, I mean, as a whole, I don't get Christmas or birthday presents. And I'm cool with that. Believe me, I am. But I haven't had birthday and Christmas presents pretty much for nearly 30 years. And even then, they were getting less and less. So, it really... To me, a thoughtful gift is far better than someone who blew a load of money on it. Because if it's really expensive, you don't really want to use it. I mean, if someone bought me a Lamborghini, right, I'd be scared to drive it because, well, some idiot would dent it. I've got to pay the serious, exceptional insurance fees. I'd have to, I'd probably scratch it going over the sleeping policeman in my road, right? It's just not practical. And it would be a complete waste of money. I would much rather have something that I can use, that I would get to use frequently and enjoy it, and in this case have a safer floor for me and the dogs, because the slippers that I wear do not have particularly hard bottoms, so a pin would go through it real easy, and stab me in the foot, and I wouldn't enjoy that either. Now, I haven't exactly stabbed myself. I've drawn blood a few times, but on my fingers, but generally I'm good. But I found them... I did have one real serious accident with one, and I'm not entirely sure how I did it. Bit me sandwich. I ended up with a pin in my tongue. And of course, I mean, grab a pin. Hang on. Grab a pin here. If the pin is this long and it's in your... I mean, you can't really see that too well. Hang on. Let me zoom in on this. If a pin is... Yeah. And if you look at this pin, this is, it's not particularly long pin, but it's not particularly short. Well, if that's now sticking out your tongue by, say, the bit below my thumb, well, the bit above my thumb is sticking out your tongue. Well, you've now got to get your fingers in your gob to try and pick out the thing. And of course, your tongue's a bit like a wriggling snake. And it really hurts. You can't bite down and relax your mouth because, well, then that'll just push it in your tongue further. And I was in agony. And it really did scare me because, well, for example, what if I'd managed to bite it and split it and swallow it? I mean, I would like to think I'd have noticed, but, stranger things have happened. What if I'd managed to swallow it and not notice and it had gone in my guts? And it really did put the fear of God at me that pins are literally fripping everywhere. I found one in the kitchen. It's probably how I ended up in my sandwich. But I don't know how. I assume it got in my jumper because I wear jumpers. Well, it's a bit of a close up there, but I am generally wearing a jumper. So I assume he got in my jumper, travelled to the kitchen, made a leap for freedom. So they can be anywhere. And, well, then that's not really a plan. So now, at the end of an ace macing session, I can kind of do myself like an aircraft wand wave, make sure I've got none in my clothes, none on the floor, and know that everybody is safe now. And it cost me £14. Well, it wasn't even that much. It was just it was £13.59p. I mean, that's, it's I can't even really buy a pizza for that. So, for the sake of the argument, for all of that safety that gives me, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, you need to go over there. Then, it's worth every penny. And as you say, to me, something useful that makes your life easier, that makes your life safer, that is better than the one you had before, or more functional, faster, more efficient. It's a good thing. Well, exactly. For each pin it ever finds, it saved its weight in gold. Because, a trip down the vet with a dog starts at about £150. So it doesn't have to do much to pay for itself here. For even if it doesn't find pins, you've then got the peace of mind that there aren't any. Well, a good night's sleep is always also a good thing. So I'm sorry, but he did a good thing. If you don't want him, I'll have him, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that the guy did a really good thing. yes. Um, if it was just the bobbins, for example, and there were no pins, this would be a really safe and harmless sport. A bit like, while you can poke yourself with a knitting needle, you have to try a lot harder to do major damage to yourself with it. But when you've got, for example, in the previous square, we kept all of these pins because we discovered that, so all of the pins were in, because we discovered an issue. So I kept all of the pins. Pulling out those pins took forever. And it was a lifetime. Made my fingers really, really sore. It did solve the problem, but it made my fingers really, 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 really sore. So we're not doing that this time. But it's having so many pins, and even at the end, so even if you're pulling out, a wadge of pins at a time, they still make leaps for freedom. And it's surprising how far they go. Obviously, needles are the same, but you don't generally have too many of them on the go at one time. Whereas pins, you have multiple pins. And pins, as I say, do seem to love this whole idea of making bids for freedom. And it is such a problem. And so a little metal detector that, yes, I could arguably go out in the garden and look for buried treasure with it, but, that's not what I want it for. I don't really care if it's not that great at its job. If it can find a pin, which it can, for example, I'm about to use a pin anyway, so if I put my pin down, right, and I get my magic wand, it's on. Yeah, there's no pins over here. Look, see, deadly quiet. Why the hell does it It's going off on one now. It's not that near. It's up in the air. What do you think you're near? Don't tell me it's got a fault now. Because it's now going off for no good reason. Let's turn it off. Cheer it up. What's the matter? What's the matter? Let's try that again. For £14, I don't expect it to be the best thing, but there must be something. Have I got pins in the edges? There must be some form of staple or pin or buried in there somewhere, because that's just really freaky. Because underneath it, it could be my desk. It could be because my desk's got a lot of mail. Hang on. Oops. Knock the light over again. Yeah, it's my desk. I have knocked the light before, because the cables that run to the computer are behind the light. I see a pin. Hang on, let me rescue the pin. See, look. Bin. No, we were checking for pins. The lovely escapable bins. Yeah, it was. So Sigabera, obviously, as you asked that, you must have missed the beginning of that conversation, which was that there was a lady who posted on Threads who, frankly, was very disappointed with her husband because her husband, for her birthday, had bought her a metal detector. Now, he bought her a small one with a little handle and a circle at the bottom, the very traditional-looking kind, and I have the more torch-looking variety. But she was mad at him. She was proper disappointed. And we were just discussing how great and wonderful we think he is, because that's a cracking idea. So, but yeah, I think it's great, because it means that I can do a test and check that I'm not, wearing half a dozen pins. and trying to insert them in dog paws. So I think it's a cracking idea. And I feel for him because he was right. He was definitely right. It is a cracking idea. And if she's disappointed, dude, you married the wrong one. You know? Yeah, that's kind of ungrateful to the extreme. I mean, if you were a knitter and he bought you a bunch of crochet hooks, that could be disappointing. I'd kind of back you a bit on that one. But a metal detector when you flick pins all over the place, bargain. The guy should be heralded a saint, frankly. It's a cracking idea. So the fact that Woolani agrees, I inserted an I in there for some reason. Bad eyesight. Woolan feels the time. He's good too. It proves that it's not just a me thing. So I'm feeling slightly vindicated in my agreement that the guy's a good one. It's a perfectly good present. No, I will agree. Maybe if he'd spent £13.49 and that was all he got maybe you could feel a bit disappointed because is that it? But again, it's not about the price. I mean, one of the reasons that I don't get Christmas and birthday presents is a really simple one. If I want it, I probably bought it, and if I didn't buy it, it's because it's too expensive. So stop buying me tat I don't need, Don't buy something that's, let's call it a reasonable price, because chances are I've either already got one or I didn't want one. And if it was a reasonable price, I probably would have bought it. So, yeah. I think she was hard on him herself. So yes, I'm very happy with my metal detector. It finds the pins, and that is not actually the pin I want. Nope, that's not right amount. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I screwed that up. No, Sigbear, nor had I. And so when I saw it on Amazon, which is where I got it from, I was really pleased because it's a really practical size. I mean, you know, It's absolutely ideal. Plus, of course, it's good for checking yourself for your jumper for pins, because you can do like the airport wandy thing. And if you think about it, that's all they use at the airport is a wandy thing like that. So, you know, I mean, I haven't been on to an airport for many years, but I assume they still do the wandy thing. Um, if you set the metal detector off, I'm sure they still do the wandy thing. As someone who managed to set one of the metal detectors off, and they didn't find it when they did the wandy thing, and it must have been 20 minutes they kept pumping me through and sticking the wandy thing everywhere. Came to the conclusion that it must, you know, they didn't know what it was, but it must be harmless and let me fly. But then I also haven't flown for 36 years? Yeah, something like that. No. 37 years. Yeah. Nearly 38. So, yeah, it's changed a bit since I did any flying. I mean, let's face it, my dad made us sit in the smoking section. So, you know, there was a smoking section when I last flew. Ooh, that doesn't work out. It's because you skipped a hole. Bad pin. And stupid me. Because that is... Well, it's doable. But it's a bit of hard work. Yeah. For a second. Leave you over a bit. Now we put you in the hole that you rightfully belong, like that. There we go. There you go for that. So. That's okay. I don't know why your chat would be coming through late, but it shouldn't be. But no, don't worry at all. I saw that. Bad bobbin. Bad, naughty bobbin. You shed your cone of shame. Just need to check something because that didn't look right either. But it can be misleading in photos. No, it is just misleading. See, the problem with photos is the angle you take them. The pins then don't look uniform. Well, they don't look uniform anyway, but sometimes it looks like you missed a big gap. So here, this pin disappeared and kind of melded with the others, so it didn't look, it looked like it was a huge gap and I've missed a pin on the top, but I haven't. So that's okay. Because, of course, it is the photo in which you spot the mistake, not while you're doing it, because, well, that would be just too easy now, wouldn't it? I mean, occasionally I notice that it doesn't seem right, like I may notice that I missed a pin, but missed a hole, but it is too easily done. Far too easily done. Well, it is 2 o'clock in the morning now. I am semi wide awake, but I don't really want to start this big square yet. I think doing that tomorrow is a better time for me because, well, if I missed a pin, I'm starting to make mistakes, and while making mistakes kind of goes with the territory because it does. It really, truly does. I don't want to make too many because if I tie them off and then have made one, be really miffed. So, because once I've tied it off, untying it is next to impossible. And frankly, it is impossible, in my humble opinion. So, I don't really want to be in that position. So I shall do it when I'm a bit more awake tomorrow afternoon. So it'll probably be in about 12 hours' time. I imagine around about 2 o'clock tomorrow time. So if you're around in 12 hours' time, you are very welcome to join me. I thank you for coming and joining me today. I have appreciated the chatter and meeting Wall Ann in terms of on Twitch, and thank you. I always worry about my streams because sometimes there's great portions of not talking because, well, none of you are talking to me. So I either ramble and rant away like a half-brained idiot, or I sit in silence. And sometimes I do a bit of both. But it's always good to have a bit of chatter going on because then it becomes a living thing. It becomes, much as I hate the phrase like living document, but it becomes a much more livable stream in the sense that you guys have input into it, and it makes me feel like you're participating, if you know what I mean, rather than just kind of like drooling out the corner of your gobs kind of thing. So yes, I thank you for coming, and with any luck, some of you will be around tomorrow. If not, I will likely be around from, late again next Saturday so that people can have a better time. But normally, obviously, I am in much more British hours because, well, I hold a job and I can't afford to do this every night. So, because, well, I've now got videos to upload, which I will do, but I will not set them till live till tomorrow morning because, well, I need to put the pictures on and do all of that. But I'm pretty happy with what we've done today. We've tied off a big bunch more bobbins. We've done a couple of blocks. It's all good, and we're definitely on form for finishing tomorrow. So, and then I guess we'll have to start another. Mind you, I've still got some bobbins to wind because we've emptied some bobbins, and I want to change bobbins. So, not sure there's going to be much of a stream on Sunday. It'll about 12 hours time. I don't do fixed times because occasionally I nap and it happens a bit longer, or I end up doing something, look up and go, oh shit, forgot. However, possibly 12 hours time. It certainly won't be before 10 hours time, and it probably won't be longer than 18 hours time. I know that's a bit vague, but that's kind of, that 6 hour block is most likely time. Because obviously I want to go to bed fairly early as I've got work Monday morning. So, mind you, it's only Saturday tomorrow. So, to be honest, don't friggin' know. So, tomorrow, yes, is about as much as I can guarantee. But if you join the Discord, it'll tell you. And because Twitch doesn't always, and so that's a good thing if you let it. So yes, Um, Hence, I don't have a full time schedule, even though I try and stream every day because I can't guarantee. I don't want to try and force myself to be ready for a particular time when maybe I was in the middle of something else. So, God forbid, I was in the in the mood for cleaning, or I don't want to stop to do this. I want this to be a bit more fluid. Hence, Friday is the only day I put a time out for. The rest are I would like to stream every day. There are occasionally days I don't, often Mondays, and but I do try and stream every day. I just don't promise you a time, but I do try. And obviously, workday ones are later. So, I mean, I normally wouldn't finish work till 14 hours time if it was a workday kind of moment. So, um, and then I've got to do a few dog things and tidy up and move a few things, and then I can start streaming. So earliest is usually 5 o'clock UK time. I don't usually start after 8, although there have been a couple. So weekday ones, it's a smaller window, but weekends are a bit of a free for all. It depends what time I get up, how well I'm doing, what I've done, whether I ate my lunch or not. Because if I haven't eaten, I really ought to eat first. Um, yeah, so hence it's a bit fluid. Well, it is, and so I promised to stream at 2 o'clock on a UK time on a Friday. Everything else is a bit hit and miss, and I appreciate that makes it harder for you guys. But then, hey, you can always catch up with YouTube if you miss it. So, um, I shall try and see you all tomorrow. Have fun. Bye bye.